Okay, a very good evening, guys. Can you let me know if y'all can hear me and see a screen? Yes. Can hear, can see. Yeah. Others also fine. Right, perfect. Guys, so in terms of just I think I mentioned this in the previous classes as well. So Zoom has updated their chat feature. So it's a little bit annoying, the new chat feature. So every time someone sends a message, it opens up as a new conversation for me. So then every time some of you all send me a message directly just to me, I have to, individually click one by one, the pop-up that comes to open up your message. So what we'll do is, in general, the class that we do, whatever messages you can send it on the main chat, right? So you can send it to everyone. Usually when we discuss the MCQs, the answers that you have, even questions, you can send it on the main one so that I don't miss the individual ones, because the individual ones don't come one under the other now. It comes as, separate different chats. So when you have like 50 people texting, that's like 50 different pop-ups that I have to separately open. So for that reason, you can use the main chat box to text. Okay. Right. So with that, Lama, we'll get started. Today we need to start off with the unit number 3 past papers. Now, last week we couldn't do because I was also down with fever. I think I checked with a lot of fast track students also, uh, with on their progress, and something that I heard from most of them also is that a lot of them were down with fever. How many of you all got sick last week, or maybe in the last couple of weeks, chikungunya and all of that? Yes, hardly recovered. Yeah, so there was a lot of people who were actually down with different things, parents, right? It's not easy. So on your end also, try to specially look after your health, Lamai, in this last 4 or 5 months, because this last 4 or 5 months, there is a lot of work that you have to do. Now, even let's say 1 week you fall sick and you end up doing nothing, that's a lot of work that you end up missing, Lamai. So for that reason, on your end, try to, stay very healthy, very safe, right? So in terms of, what you eat, in terms of, getting wet in the rain, and, all of that. And even in your garden, right? If there are places where mosquitoes could breed and all of that, because I've had a lot of students, Lama, in the past also, not a lot actually, but I've known a few students closer to the exam. They've, either got dengue, they've got, different things, and they've even missed the A-level exam. So imagine if that happens, right? For 2.5 years, you've been studying, and exactly, let's say, right before your exam, you get dengue and you get admitted in a hospital. So I hope and pray that none of that happens to you all. But those are things that happen to people, Lavai. So on your end, try to be as safe and as careful as possible. Okay, so there is a bit of a cartoon as well that I want to discuss to give you all a bit of a current context, and then we'll get started with unit number 3. And just a reminder, Lamai, for the fast track students and anyone who is willing to join the fast track. So the month 3 of the fast track program is commencing next week. So next Monday is the first class. In month 3, I'm commencing the grade 13 syllabus. That is the most, uh, I would say, at your level, you will consider it as the most difficult set of units. So units 7, 8, and 9. Difficult and also very, very important. So I will be covering units 7, 8, and 9 in June. Uh, Recapping the theory, doing the papers, marking your papers, sticking to that study plan that I would have given you. That's what we will be doing. There are a few more slots that is available, but once slots are reached, Lamai, I will close registrations. There are a few slots available. You can pay the fee and you can register. Once the fee is paid, we will courier you the fast track month 3 book. The ones who are in the fast track, did you all get your books today by any chance? Anyone got some of it today? Yes, nice, perfect. Right, perfect. Right. So we'll start on Monday. If you've got the book, good. Okay, so we'll start, Lavan. Those things aside, let's get started with the past papers for unit number 3. I have a bit of a cartoon also. I shared a small message on it on the past paper class group as well, but what is happening in the Colombo Municipal Council. I think I would have spoken a little bit about this before as well, but a very interesting thing that is going on. But what's happening, Lama, in the Colombo Municipal Council? That's what this cartoon is about, right? So here, you have the Colombo Municipal Council. You have a coconut tree here, and you have Sajid and Anura, both of them trying to climb this coconut tree. So how does this work, Lama? How does the what do you all know about this whole thing? Yes. What do you all know about the whole municipal council, whatever that is happening? Hmm? At your level, what do you know? What is this cartoon about? What does it mean? Why are they climbing a coconut tree? Why are both of them climbing a coconut tree? Hmm? No one knows anything? Okay, so to give you all some sort of context, Lamai, now recently, I think a month ago, you had the local government elections. Local government elections is the what you call the Nagar Sabha, right? Where you appoint people to the municipal councils out there. So there are multiple municipal councils, right? Even in the area that you live, you might have seen there is a municipal council around. And then you also have the Colombo Municipal Council. So the Colombo Municipal Council, Lama, is usually like a kind of a main municipal council, right? So it's also just like the other municipal councils, Tamai. But usually, someone who runs the Colombo Municipal Council, it's kind of like a main one. So usually, Tamai, in the past, right, if you take the last 10-15 years, the Colombo Municipal Council has mainly been run by the UNP, right? The UNP or at the break off that comes either the SJB. So it has always been the UNP SJB kind of parties that have always had been running the Colombo Municipal Council. So the mayor has been from one of those two parties. Now, even if you remember, Lama, in 2020, in 2019, when Gota, right, even when Gota was president, even if when the Pohottua won the election, Lamai, they won the parliamentary election, they won the presidential election, and even they won the local government election, even though Gota and them won it, Lamai, the Colombo Municipal Council, they were not able to win. So the Colombo Municipal Council, even in 2019, 2020, was still under the UNP SJB governing parties. So usually, Lamai, to win one of these municipal councils or thing, you need to usually have a majority of the vote. So majority of the vote can, Lama, you need to have more than 50% of the votes for your party. So because if you have more than 50% of the votes, then Lama, you can easily get anything done. So even if all the other parties combine, they will have less than, So let's say if you have 51% of the vote. So even if all the others get together, they might have, let's say, only a 49% power. So if you are voting against something, trying to pass a law, trying to, do something, even if everyone else is against you, you still have 51%. So therefore, you can, pass any law, you can get things done. That's why that majority is usually important, even when it comes to parliamentary elections and even these local government elections. So now, usually what has been happening is usually this SJB UNP has been the party that has been winning the Colombo Municipal Council, and they have been winning it with majority as well. They have been winning it with more than 50% of the vote. But this time, right, in the local government election that happened last month, I put a screenshot of the results as well for the Colombo Municipal Council. So this time, Lamai, the NPP won it, right? But even though the NPP won it, they also don't have a clear majority. So this time in the local government election, the NPP, they got 36% of the vote. So 36.9, so we'll say 37%. So they don't also have 50%, Lamai. Now, if you want to appoint the mayor, we say the Nagaradhipati. So if you want to appoint the mayor, Lamai, you need to have 50% of the votes. So if you have 50% of the votes, then you can appoint a person from your party as the mayor for whatever that council. So here for the Colombo Municipal Council, if you have 50%, then you can easily appoint. Now that's why, Lamai, earlier you would have seen there was Hirunika was, I remember, Colombo Municipal Council mayor. So it was always that UNPSJB kind of people. So now this time, for the first time you've seen in a long time, a party other than the UNPSJB actually winning. But even though the NPP won it, they only have, Lamai, around a 37% of the vote. So 37% of the vote can lamai if everyone else gets together, then they have lamai 63%. So if the SJB has around 26% of the vote, then you have the UNP who has around 11.8, let's say 12% of the votes. Then you have the SLPP, you have the SLMC. So all of these parties, there are a few other independent parties. So if all of these people get together, then lamai they have 63% of the vote, where NPP has only 36. So if they get together, lamai, they can appoint their mayor on their own. They don't have to, have an NPP related mayor. So now that is where this whole delay and this whole problem is coming. Now the NPP is saying they are the ones who have won this election. They have won. They have more votes than anyone else. So they're saying they have won it and they are appointing their mayor. They are confident that they can appoint a mayor of their own. So there is this, I can't remember the name of that. There is this lady. You all would have seen her, right? So they have NPP has a lady in mind as I'll show you a picture. You would have seen her. I can't remember the name of this person. If anyone knows the name, you can let me know. So they are looking at appointing her. And then the SJB is saying, we have also, got together with some other parties. We are also ready. We are also confident that we can appoint the mayor. So still, both the parties are very confident saying, no, mayor is from our party. Other one is saying, no, mayor is definitely from our party. That's where the confusion is. So that is what this whole cartoon is about. The Colombo Municipal Council, you have the SJB and the NPP, both of them trying to appoint their own mayor. I think I shared a small news article regarding this as well a couple of days ago on the past paper class group. So we'll see. Maybe probably within a week or two, someone would get appointed as the mayor there. That's the Colombo Municipal Store. And then there was another, yes, the Vrei Kelly Balza. Yeah, she's that lady. You can, I don't know, it's very hard to pronounce her name also. I don't know how her name is pronounced. Is the V silent? I don't know. What's a news article, news report and see how is it this thing. That's the name, the Vrei Kelly Balza. So she's the lady. You would have seen that lady, right? She's very common in social media and all. You can just Google that name and see. That is the NPP's candidate for the Colombo mayor. But still, so they are saying that they are ready to appoint her. Sajid is saying that they also have someone else that they are ready to appoint, but still no official announcement has been made. Okay, then the other cartoon that I have is about all these diseases. That is a bit of a warning for y'all, Lamai, to be careful. So there is a chikungunya virus that is going on. There is a dengue whole thing that is going on with the rain. There is another COVID-19 variant that is roaming around. I'm not sure if that is there in Sri Lanka yet, but there is another COVID-19 variant that is going here and there. And then there is a normal influenza, normal flu around also. So all of that is hitting the country in different ways. But as students, please be careful, look after your health, Lamai, because even if you fall sick for a week or two, that's a lot of work that you will end up missing. So I hope and pray you can't stop it, but try to be careful as much as possible. Have vitamin C, do all of that. Drink hot water, have some kottamalli, so don't wait until you get sick. Even if you feel like, you're getting a little sick, tagga, take medicine. Lama. That's what I also usually do. Now, even now last Friday, I didn't do the class. No? So I also got this whole chikungunya thing, Tamai. But what happened is, Lamai, uh, everyone in my house, right? So got chikungunya. I also knew most likely. So how chikungunya spreads is, Lamai, if a mosquito who has bit that person comes and bites you, you will also get it. So a person who has chikungunya, mosquito goes bite the fellow and comes and bites you, you will get it. So then I knew, given that you live in the same house, most likely I might also get. So last Friday, Saturday was actually very bad. But given that I knew this was coming, I already had a medicine dose that was ready. So the moment I felt that I'm getting it, I Taggala took it. So it didn't get that bad. So on your end, because I know if I fall sick and I get chikungunya for a week, all my classes start piling up. And that's too much of work to handle. So you also might be a little prepared. Right? You can't completely stop what is happening. You can't stop a mosquito coming and biting you. So in case, even if you feel like you're getting a little sick, taggala behet ganna lamai. Don't wait until you, it gets worse and then you wait 1-2 weeks in bed. Don't go to that level. Okay, right. So with that being said, current context done, we'll get into Lamai. the past papers of unit number 3. So unit number 3, I have broken it into 4 parts. So I'll just run you through the 4 parts, Lamai. The first part I have broken it is the taxes part. That is what we will be doing today. And then I also have a part on, okay, so we have a taxes part, that is focus area number 8. So focus area 1 to 7 was unit number 1 and 2. So focus area number 8 is taxes. Focus area number 9 is on subsidies. That is the one that we will do next week. Focus area number 10 is maximum prices. And I have added price stabilization as well. So I feel Lamai, this focus area number 9 and 10, both of these are small. So I feel next week we can do both of this. We don't have to do only one. Subsidies is also a smaller one. If you look at the questions now, there is not much. So we should be able to do maximum prices and subsidies, both of it together next week. And then you have the last one, that is 11, that is on the minimum prices. So that is how unit number 3 is divided. So there is 4 different focus areas. Today we will work on focus area number 8, that is on taxes. So Thakgal will do the questions, Lamai. Once you have understood the area, then the others also get much easier. So on your end, Lamai, try do the questions as soon as possible. So then even if I have an extra class or something, we can Thakgal do it and we can finish it off. Yes, we'll try my level best. I'll try my level best to do the fast papers quickly, but I don't want to rush with the past papers also, because I know in the past paper class, some of y'all are at, y'all are not very advanced. Some of y'all are, at a very basic level. That's why I don't want to rush it too much. I can have a few extra classes and Tattagala finish it. But the problem is then y'all don't do the questions and come sometimes once a week having the class itself, you can't finish off the 2-hour questions and come. And if I have 3 classes a week, then you have 3 papers to do a week. That's what happens. So I can have a few extra classes. I will anyway finish it off before the exam. So on your end, we'll see what we can do. Okay. Right. Let's get started. So starting with Lamai, the first question. So give me answers. You can give me answers. I would encourage to put it on the main chat, Lamai, because individual chats, like I said, with the new upgrade in the Zoom feature, Zoom chat box, all individual chats gets opened in a separate conversation. So I have to individually click one by names for you to, for me to read your individual chats. So send it on the main chat box. We can then discuss. Don't feel shy. Okay, so 2011 A levels, question number 16. The question is saying, assuming the price elasticity of demand for a product is 0. So they're saying PED is 0. PED is 0. Can you all tell me what is the type of elasticity? There are 5 types of elasticities. This is what? Price elasticity demand for a product is 0 again. Perfectly. Quickly. PED is 0 is what, Lamai? Right or wrong, that's okay, Lamai. No one is here to judge you. Give an answer. You get it wrong, then you'll remember it better. So this is perfectly inelastic. Perfectly inelastic demand. And then any tax imposed on the product will. What do you think happens, Lamai? When there is perfectly inelastic demand, right, how does the tax burden get divided? Who bears most of the tax, or who bears the entire tax? If demand is perfectly inelastic, the buyer or the consumer bears the entire tax. No, I'll draw and show you. The buyer or the consumer bears the entire tax burden. So I'll draw and show you this, Lamai, how did I come to this conclusion? So let me draw the diagram. So you have your demand normal. I draw it as neat as possible. Okay. So perfectly inelastic demand, that is a straight line like this, because they are saying PED is 0. For supply, I'll draw a normal supply curve because they have not told me anything about supply. So based on this, let's say right now, my equilibrium price is 10 rupees, quantity is 100 units. So when there is a tax, what happens, Lamai? When there is a tax, the supply curve shifts to the left. Now you have the supply curve after tax. So as a result, what do you have, Lamai? Now you have your new equilibrium price. Now, if you properly look at this diagram, look at, Lamai, the price received by the producer. Now, earlier, before the tax, consumer was paying 10 rupees, producer was receiving 10 rupees. But now, let's say there is a tax of 5 rupees. In my example, there is a tax of 5. So when this tax of 5 has been put, supply will shift to the left. And now, see, Lamai, the price received by the producer. So how do you find the price received by the producer? From your new equilibrium. New equilibrium, you draw a line to your old supply curve and you connect it to the price axis. So price received by the producer is still 10. What does that mean, Lamai? The producer earlier also got 10 rupees. After the tax also, he is getting 10 rupees. That means, is the producer bearing any burden? Is the producer bearing any burden from the tax? Earlier also he got 10, now also he is getting 10. Is he bearing any burden? He's not bearing any burden, Lamai. So that means the entire burden is on the consumer. So if the entire burden is on the consumer, can you tell me what will be the equilibrium price here? If the tax is 5 rupees, earlier equilibrium price was 10. What is the new equilibrium price now? Your new equilibrium price will now be, Lamai, a 15. So the entire tax burden will be borne by the consumer. So this yellow shaded area will be, Lamai, consumer's tax burden. So you can draw and figure it out. But in simple terms, remember, Lamai, whoever who is inelastic gets most of the burden. That is the shortcut for MCQs. Whoever who is inelastic get most of the burden. If someone is perfectly inelastic, then they will get the entire burden. So here, demand is perfectly inelastic. So then consumer got the entire burden. Entire burden is on him. If someone is perfectly elastic, then the other person gets the entire burden. So let's say demand is perfectly elastic, then producer will get the entire burden. So if you're inelastic, you get more of the burden. If perfectly elastic, the entire burden is borne by the producer. Correct. So if demand was perfectly elastic, entire burden will be borne by the producer. So we have drawn these diagrams, Lama, in class. I'm pretty sure in whatever class you all went, you all would have drawn those. Okay. So then based on that, Lama, which one is our answer? Which one is our answer? First one says leave the position of the supply curve unchanged. No, supply curve will shift. Shift the supply curve to the right. Shift the demand curve to the right. No. Be paid entirely by the producer. No. It will raise the price of the product by the full amount of the tax. Correct, no? That means, Lamai, the consumer is bearing the entire tax. Always remember, Lamai, equilibrium price is the price paid by the consumer. So earlier consumer paid 10 rupees, equilibrium. Now the new equilibrium is 15. That is what he is paying. So equilibrium price has gone up by 5. That is the amount of the tax. So that's that answer. 16, answer number 5. These are not very hard, Lamai. If you are little not sure of these diagrams and the theory part, you get a little stuck. But if you do a few questions, practice it a bit, you should be okay. Moving to the next, 2012. These are, Lamai, almost free marks in your paper. They are giving you a tax diagram and they're asking you, what is the consumer producer surplus and the dead weight loss after the tax? So this is your initial supply curve, initial demand curve. Based on that, this is your initial equilibrium price and quantity. Now what happens? Now there is a tax. So therefore your supply curve shifts to the left. And now you have a new equilibrium price and quantity. How do you find the area of the tax? From your new equilibrium, that is that yellow dot, you draw a line to your old supply curve, you connect it to the price X. So you get a rectangle-like area there. That is, Lamai, the government's tax revenue. This yellow color thing is government's tax revenue. From your new equilibrium, you draw a line to your old supply curve, connect it to the price axis. Then, Lamai, they are not asking you for government tax revenue. What are they asking you? They're asking you for consumer surplus, producer surplus, and dead weight loss. So you all know the areas, no? Which area is consumer surplus after tax? Consumer surplus after tax, what's the letter? Quickly give me the letter. What's the letter? Consumer surplus after tax. is A, right? Nice. Consumer surplus is A. What is the producer surplus after tax? Producer surplus after tax is H. Perfect. Which area is the deadweight loss? Deadweight loss is the D and the E. That is the deadweight loss. So then which one is your answer? Consumer surplus A, H, D, and E. Answer number 2. Yes, these are free marks. These are there in your tutes as well. But I feel now product unlikely that your examiner will give you questions like this though. They do, not that they don't. But remember, recently they had this whole thing where they try to make the paper more practical, where a person memorizes and does can't do කියන එක. So because of that reason, right, I feel questions like this type of ones where with නිකන් අර memory power වලින් letters දාන ඒවා, it might not really come. The difference between deadweight loss, social welfare loss ළමයි, it's a little bit of a bigger story, but if I am to simply explain, deadweight loss is ළමයි because the government is intervening. You can go back if you have my theory class or some recording that I would have taught this, you can definitely go back. Deadweight loss is ළමයි because of the fact that government intervenes, you end up producing a quantity that is not allocatively efficient. So according to this diagram ළමයි, your allocative efficiency, supply curve is your marginal cost curve, demand curve is your marginal benefit curve. So this equilibrium, initial equilibrium of Q2 is your allocatively efficient level of output. But when the government comes and taxes the product, now you end up producing a lesser quantity. Now you're producing Q1. You're producing less than the allocatively efficient level of output. So there is the inefficiency there. So under that inefficiency is what you call deadweight loss. Deadweight loss is the inefficiency caused by not producing the allocatively efficient level of output. So what is the area of that inefficiency? The area of that inefficiency, you look at the, now this is the, I'll try to use different colors. Okay. So this black curve is your marginal cost curve. This yellow curve here, that is your marginal benefit curve. So between that Q1 and Q2, look at the gap between that marginal cost, marginal benefit. That is where you get this D and E. Between Q1 and Q2, the gap between marginal cost, marginal benefit. And that is where your deadweight loss comes. That is deadweight loss. Okay. And then, now if this is the first time that you're hearing this whole explanation, it would have been utter Greek. Then social welfare loss, you look at what happened to the society. What happened to consumer surplus? What happened to producer surplus? What happened to the government? And then you look at what is the net impact of it. And that is what you call my social welfare loss. Now, my old videos that are there on YouTube have a different explanation. That is the old one. So this whole deadweight loss, social welfare loss, how you look at it, it changed in around 2022, 2023. Somewhere around there, how the examiner looks at it changed. So some of my videos that are on YouTube are old ones. So then those old videos have deadweight loss explained a different way. So that's why just because the old videos are there, don't go and watch all of that. You come to the live class here. Okay, right. That is done. We'll go to the next. 2013 A levels, question number 11. They're saying, suppose the price last year demand for cigarettes is less than 1. What does that mean, Lama? PED for cigarettes is less than 1 can elastic or inelastic? Less than 1, inelastic. So PED is inelastic. And then when an excise tax is imposed, it changes the price, quantity, and consumer spending. In which of the following ways? What do you all think now? Now, something like this, you can practically get it. Now, you all know that excise tax is a tax on goods. Supply curve will shift to the left. So what happens to equilibrium price when they put a tax level? Supply shifts to the left and the price increases. Right. What happens to the equilibrium quantity? Now, the previous diagram lamai balana, when there is a tax, supply to the left, equilibrium quantity comes down, it decreases. Okay. Now, given that the consumer's demand is inelastic, what do you think will happen to his spending, lamai? Now, when there is a tax, the price will go up. But given that his demand is inelastic, lamai, the demand will come down only a little. So as a result, what happens to his consumer expenditure? Price goes up, tax එකක් දාලානේ. Tax. But inelastic, cigarette is habit forming, lamai. That's why it's inelastic. So demand falls only a little. What do you think will happen to his expenditure? His expenditure will actually increase, lamai. So if I give you an example, let's say, lamai, earlier a cigarette is 100 rupees. Okay. A person was smoking 10 cigarettes a day. Then his consumer expenditure was 1000 rupees. Price was 100. He was smoking 10 cigarettes a day. Now what happened? Government came and imposed the tax. So when they imposed the tax, let's say, lamai, the cigarette price went to 150. They put a 50 rupee tax on cigarettes. But question is saying demand for cigarettes is inelastic, PD less than 1. That means even when the price increase, QD will fall only a little. So maybe now, instead of consuming 10 cigarettes, the fellow is, let's say, consuming 8 cigarettes. Price went up by 50%, but quantity demand fell only 20%. 10 went to 8. So now how much is his consumer expenditure? Now his consumer expenditure is 1,200. And that is what I am trying to say. So I am telling you, when the price increases, given that it is inelastic, QD will fall a little. And what happens, lamai? Your consumer expenditure ends up going up. That is your answer. So which one is the answer then? Price increase, quantity decrease, consumer expenditure increase. Answer 4. Yeah. Answer number 4. 2013 question 11. Done. Then we'll move to the next. 2014 A levels question number 12. A very easy one, lamai. These again are like free marks in the paper. They've given you a supply equation. QS equals 100 plus 10p. And they're telling you, if a tax of 5 rupees was put, what is the supply equation after the tax? So how do you find this? So you all know, lamai, after tax, lamai, supply equation changes the format into P plus, P minus T. A plus B, within brackets, you have P minus T. So now, lamai, you substitute the numbers. So A is 100. B is 10. P I will keep as it is. My tax they are saying is 5 rupees. So now if I simplify this, I get my new supply equation. How much do I get? 100. 10 into P is 10p. 10 into minus 5 is minus 50. Then my new supply equation becomes 100 minus 50 is a 50 plus 10p. So which one is your answer then? 50 plus 10p. Answer number 1. Free marks in your paper. If all 50 MCQs were like this, how nice, no? Done. Then going to 2015. 15, question number 15. Suppose the demand for petrol is very inelastic. Demand is inelastic. Supply is very elastic. And excise tax on petrol will be borne by whom, lamai? I told you, whoever who is inelastic will bear most of the burden. So in this question, lamai, who is inelastic? The buyer or the seller? The buyer, no, they're saying demand is inelastic. So the buyer will the buyer bear the entire burden, or will he bear more of the burden? What do you think? Will he bear the entire thing? Remember that previous question we did? There the buyer got the entire thing. Demand was perfectly inelastic. He got the entire thing. But here it is not perfectly inelastic. No? Here he is inelastic. So he will get, buyer gets more of the burden. more of the burden. So if you want, now that is a shortcut. Shortcut is only whoever who is inelastic gets most of the burden. What you can do is that you can draw. So shall I draw this quickly and show you? So if you draw, okay, you can draw and look at the burden. So there is they are saying demand is inelastic. So demand is very means like highly inelastic. Not it's perfectly, it's highly inelastic. That's what that word very there means. So demand is very inelastic. So then demand curve lama, I'll draw inelastic demand curve, a steep curve like this. You have to draw the correct shape. And then supply is very elastic. Elastic means flat. So a flatter curve like that. Supply is very elastic. So then based on this, this is my initial equilibrium price. This is my quantity. So let's say price is 10, quantity is 100. Government has come and imposed the tax of 5 rupees. So then what happens? Supply curve will shift to the left. Government puts a tax and the supply shifts to the left. Now, how do you find the area of the tax limit? To find the area of the tax, now you have your new equilibrium price. How do you find the area of the tax? From your new supply curve, you draw a line to your old, supply curve and you connect it to the price axis. So then here you can see that entire tax rectangle gets divided into two. That upper portion, don't memorize that also. That upper portion is what you call the consumer's tax burden. So for example, equilibrium price was 10. Now the equilibrium price might be 14. So from the 5 rupee tax, consumer is bearing 4 rupees. If the equilibrium price is 14, tax is 5 now, then how much will the producer receive? How much will the producer get? Consumer is paying 14 rupees. There's a tax of 5 to be paid. How much will the producer receive? Price received by the producer is? How much is that? Number? If the equilibrium price is 14, and if there is a tax of 5, producer will get 9, no? Producer gets a 9. From the 14, you minus the tax. So then, producer, earlier he got 10 rupees. Now he is getting a 9 rupees. So this green color area is the producer's tax burden. So from the 5 rupee tax, my producer is bearing only 1 rupee. Yeah. Consumer is bearing a 4 rupee burden. So you can properly draw it and figure it out as well. You can see that the rectangle on top is bigger than the rectangle at the bottom. That's how you can properly draw and explain. You need to know how to draw a paper to. So now here, in the 15th question, now here they are saying, I told you, the buyer will bear most of the burden. So correct, no? Consumer is the buyer. Consumer bears most of the burden. So which one is your answer then? More heavily on the buyers. So answer number 1. The subsidy also is based on elasticity. Okay, yes, subsidy, if you are inelastic, you get more of the benefit. In a tax, if you are inelastic, you get more of the burden, tax burden. In a subsidy, if you are inelastic, you get more of the subsidy benefit. So in a subsidy, if you are inelastic, that is good for you. In a tax, if you are inelastic, you get more of the burden, that is bad for you. That's how it goes. Okay, that. Then going into 2016. Okay, 2016 is saying, the table below shows the market demand and supply schedules for a commodity before and after the imposition of a tax on an essential commodity. What was the tax per unit? Remember in unit 3, I teach you all a 4-step process. Remember, step number 1, find the amount of the tax. Step number 2, find two prices with the difference of the tax. Step number 3, I tell you, find the difference in quantity supplied at those two prices. Then I tell you step number 4, deduct that difference to get the quantity supplied after tax. Remember that steps. Now here what you do is you're working backwards. So if you look at it, now Quantity supplied before tax is 20, quantity supplied after tax is 0. 30, 10, 40, 20, 50, 30. So how much is the difference here, Lamai? How much have they deducted from quantity supplied before to go to quantity supplied after? They have deducted the 20, no? Now you're working backwards in those steps. So they have deducted the 20. So 40 minus the 20 tamai 20. 30 minus the 20 tamai a 20. Right. Now what do you do? Now you have found the difference is a 20. So then Lama, you're working backwards. So then how did they get the difference of 20? They would have taken Lamai two different quantity supplies. So the difference in quantity supplied, there is a different two quantity supplied that has a difference of 20. Then you work back and look at the price here, 13 and 15. So the difference in the two prices is your tax. How much do you think is your tax here? There would have been a tax of 2, no? Anna, that is your answer. Now, here Lama, this product. Now, the problem is not all of you all were in my theory or revision class. No? So you might not remember those steps a little, Lama. Okay, so I'm not very sure how your whoever who teacher someone would have taught you all this no school. I'm not very sure because those steps are things I made up by myself. Right, just to teach the process. I'm not very sure how those teachers would have taught you. They also would have taught you, maybe they would have taught a much easier method as well. So see how you can apply to that. So usually this is in unit number 3. When there is a tax, how do you adjust the supply schedule? So if there's a tax of 2 rupees, how do you adjust the supply schedule? So here what I'm doing is, Lama, I'm working backwards in this. Based on the steps that I have given, I'm working back. So I'll just tell you the normal steps, right? The normal steps is, Lama, step number 1 is to find the amount of the tax. Right? So you find the amount of the tax. So that is what we have to find, Lama. That's why I'm working backwards here. Then step number 2. So we'll say, look, they have not given me these numbers. These numbers they haven't given me. I'll show you how to find this. So let's say they have put a tax of 2 rupees. Okay, so you find based on the question, read the question and see how much of tax they have put. Okay, question says there is a tax of 2 rupees. Done. Step number 2 is Lamai, find two prices. Find two prices with the difference of the tax. With the difference of the tax. So tax is 2 rupees. No, then find two prices that has a difference of 2. So then, for example, I will select, let's say, 13 and 15. That is the second step. Question said there is a 2 rupee tax. Second step is find two prices that has a difference of the tax. So if the tax was 3 rupees, then I would have taken 13 and 16 or 12 and 15. So based on the tax, you find two prices. That's step 2. Step 3 is Lamai. Step 3 is find the difference in quantity supplied at those two prices. So at those two prices that you selected, find how much is the difference in quantity supply. So at price 13, the quantity supplied is 30. At price 15, quantity supplied is 50. So what is the difference in quantity supplied at those two prices? 30 and 50. What's the difference? The difference is a 20. That is step number 3. Find the tax. Find two prices that has the difference of the tax. Then find the difference in quantity supplied at those two prices. So then 30 and 50, I got a difference of 20. Then the last step is Lamai, deduct the difference from quantity supplied before, from QS before to get QS after. So then QS before is 20, deduct that difference. 20 minus 20, I get 0. 30 minus 20, I get 10. 40 minus 20, I get 20. 50 minus 20, I get 30. 60 minus 20, I get 40. And that is how, Lama, you get these numbers. That is the step. But now this question is wants you to work backwards. They have given you the quantity supplied after. They want you to work back and find step number 1 here. They want you to find the tax. So that is what I did. So I'm not very sure, Lamai, how your teachers would have taught you all that story. Okay. And you can get that there. We can also find the new equilibrium price and then find the difference between the all. No, the change in equilibrium price is not always the tax, Lamai, because the change in equilibrium price is the consumer's tax burden. Yeah. Now, maybe in this question, it could be right, Lamai, because consumer's demand is perfectly inelastic, because at all the prices 50. So here you might be getting it that way. But just because the equilibrium price changes, Lamai, that is not the tax. Now, here, for example, Balan Lamai, may question in this diagram, equilibrium price earlier is 10 rupees, now it has become 14 rupees. That doesn't mean tax is 4 rupees. Tax එකක් තියෙනවා රුපියල් 5ක. Tax is 5. So be careful there. The change in equilibrium price is not the tax. Change in equilibrium price is the consumer's tax burden. That you can say. Okay. Right. So here then answer will be number 1. Moving to the next. 2016 question number 12. Can I explain what? Because I went through very much in detail on that. The method, Lama, I will want you to leave it if that is not the method that you have studied, Lama. So this method is just a method that I have taught my theory class students on how to get it. You can follow whatever method that you have learned in whatever school or this thing you have learned something. You go with that. You don't have to use this method. It's just a method that I have made up, Lamai. Not that they are going to test you saying use a method like this and get an answer. There is nothing like that. Okay. The answer is number 1. Okay. Then, Lamai, the next question. Give me a second. Let me add some water. The next question is saying, the diagram below shows an increase in supply from S2 to S1 after the removal of a tax. So after the removal of a tax, so they have removed the tax and supply has increased. And they're saying the curve S1 was the pre-tax supply curve as well as the supply curve after removal. So there was a supply, they put a tax, then supply shift to the left. Now they have removed it. So it has come back to S1. Okay. Then what effect does the removal of this tax have on tax revenue and consumer expenditure? Change in equilibrium price is the consumer tax burden. Yes, change in equilibrium price is the consumer tax burden. It is not the tax. The change in equilibrium price is not the tax. It's the consumer tax burden. Correct. Okay. So then, how much is the tax revenue, Lamai? How much of the tax revenue will they lose? It's a very easy question. So, how much of a tax revenue were they earning, Lamai? If there was a tax and supply shifted to the left, now, earlier your equilibrium price was 20, selling 100 units. Now your equilibrium price would have been 24, selling only 60. So how do you find the area of the tax? From your new equilibrium, you draw a line to your old supply curve, connect to the price axis. So this yellow rectangle is the area of your tax. Now, once you remove that tax, that revenue is the one that you lose. So how much is that? That is 8 rupees into 60. How much is that number? 8 into 60. 480. So earlier they would have been earning 480. Now, if you remove the tax, Lamai, then the tax revenue will decrease by 480. And then what happens to consumer expenditure? So when there was a tax, Lamai, the consumer would have been paying 24 rupees and buying 60 units. This would have been consumer expenditure, this black rectangle. So can you all tell me how much is that, Lamai? Consumer expenditure with tax. That is 24 into 60. 1440. Okay. Now how much is the consumer expenditure? Now if you remove the tax, consumer expenditure without the tax. So without the tax, Lamai, now he will be paying 20 rupees buying 100 units. So 20 into 100. Now how much is it? That's a 2000. So then what has happened to consumers' expenditure? When there was a tax, it was 1440. Now it is a 2000. That means consumer expenditure has increased. Increased by how much? It has increased by a 560. Increased by a 560. So then look at what are your answers. Tax revenue would have gone down by 480 and consumer expenditure would have increased by a 560. So answer number 3, decreases by 480, increases by a 560. Same. Okay, done. Then this is also 2016. This is also 2016 again. Sorry, I couldn't put the. What is in the this one showing? There is supposed to be a. Okay. Sorry, zoomed in. No, that's why. Okay. Right. So then the next question. So 2016 question 14. The diagram below shows the country's demand curve for an imported consumer good. The government of this country imposes an import duty equal to P1, P2. Which area of the diagram measures the resulting loss in consumer surplus and the gain in government revenue? Remember, I taught you all this a bit in the, I taught you all the imported supply curve. I told you we learned this in unit number 9 as well. But I remember when I did a question, I would have taught you all this a bit. Okay. So, there is the imported supply curve. So this supply curve, I'll draw a supply curve here. This is what you call, the imported supply curve. So an imported supply curve, is perfectly elastic because when you talk about imports, that's the world market. So the world market can supply any reasonable quantity at the prevailing price because they are the world market. They can supply any quantity that is reasonably possible. That's why they have a perfectly elastic supply curve. So this is the price there. Price is at P1. So now when the government puts a, let's say, a tax, a import duty, what happens? My supply shifts to the left. So now you have the new supply curve. They're saying tax of P1, P2. So then supply curve shifts here. So now this is the supply curve after tax. So now your equilibrium quantity is this blue color dot. That's the equilibrium point. Now the price is P2 and you're selling this quantity, let's say 100, okay, let's say 1000 units. The question is asking you, what is the loss in consumer surplus? So consumer surplus earlier would have been this entire area, A, B, and C. Consumer would have been paying the price of P1, buying, let's say, 1500 units. But now, once this tax has been put, now the price goes up to P2. So now, the consumer surplus will come down to this area A. And then this one, this area of B becomes now my government's revenue. So government is charging a tax of this much between P1 to P2 into 1000 units. So that is government's tax revenue, B. And then the C becomes your deadweight loss. So this C becomes the deadweight loss that they are not asking you in this question. So question is asking you loss in consumer surplus. So the loss in consumer surplus is B and C. The government gain in government revenue, that is a B. How many people got this right now? Yes. That means 5 then. Got it right? That I think would have been so far would have been the hardest question that is there. None of the questions were actually hard. That would have been the so far a bit confusing, bit hard one. Okay, just remember that. Imported supply curve recently, there have not been a lot of questions because it's not directly there in your unit 3 syllabus. You learn this a little in unit number 9, not directly in unit number 3. Okay, moving to the next one. There's another question, 2016. Supply curve is perfectly elastic, because the world market supply curve. The world market supply curve is perfectly elastic because, if you take the world market, now remember in unit number 9, I would have explained this to you with that example of Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola. So if you take Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola is the world market supply. They are big supplier, So at that prevailing market price, let's say price at 200 rupees, at 200 rupees lamai, they have the capacity to supply any amount because they are a huge firm. So at 200 rupees, they can supply any amount of Coca-Cola bottles because they are the world market supply of the Coke drink. That is why they have a perfectly elastic one. But if you take a normal supply curve, our domestic fellow like Kick Cola, if Kick Cola wants to increase supply, yeah, the opportunity cost value, he is a small player now. So then he wants a higher price if he wants to increase. But Coca-Cola doesn't really need that. Coca-Cola is already very big. They are the big giant, right? So the world market supply curve, we usually take it as a perfect elastic one. Because the world market is the whole thing put together. The world market can supply any amount at that reasonable price. Correct, but drawing a different supply curve. Not very sure. So the supply curve has to be a perfectly elastic one. Now it has to be the world market supply curve is a parallel one like that. Then my 2016 A levels question number 15. The question is saying the diagram below shows market demand for a product. Assume that the supply is perfectly elastic, similar to the previous one then, right? Perfectly elastic, and the price is initially P1. So then this would have been the supply curve. If the price increases from P1 to P2, what is the excess tax burden? That is the dead weight loss. I showed you in this diagram all the same thing. So now if the tax is put and you go from this one to this, so what is the excess tax burden, Lamai? So this area becomes consumer surplus. This green area becomes government revenue. Which area becomes the excess tax burden? This black color triangle there. That becomes the excess tax burden or the dead weight loss. So what is that area according to this? BFC? Yes. Did you all also get that? Now, usually in a normal question, you get a triangle like this, no? But here, given that the supply is perfectly elastic, you get only like half of that triangle. That is the only difference. Now, usually, if you take, let's say, this question, right? In this question, when the supply curve shifted, your dead weight loss was that, that normal triangle. But here you get half of that normal triangle when you have a perfectly elastic supply curve. So that is what is happening over there. That's 2016, question 5. Done. Then we move into the next one, 17. 17 is saying, again, an easy one, but here you have to be a little careful. The diagram below represents a competitive market for a certain consumer good. If a specific tax is levied on the product, what is the producer surplus after tax? They have not told you how much is the tax directly, but they have told you they have given like a curly bracket and told specific tax. Lamai, where will your supply curve shift? That is the thing that you have to find. Can you tell me, is now when there is a tax supply shifts to the left? No? So tell me, Lamai, is it this? Is this the supply curve? Is this the supply curve? Or is this the supply curve? Which one is the supply curve? The green, the red, the blue. Which one is your supply curve? Is it the green? Is it the red? Is it the blue? Some of you tell me red. So why not blue? Or why not? Why not green? How do you find that line? Because if you find that, then you can find the produce surplus easily. So be careful, Lama. Remember, this question here is saying, Balanna, this distance is the unit tax. Okay. So the gap between the two curves, Lamai, has to be equal to that distance. Remember, when there is a tax, supply shifts. The vertical difference between the two supply curves is the unit tax. So then, okay, I'll just show you. If you start from here, right, let's say I'll give a red dot here. This is the unit tax. So they're saying start from here. Another red dot will be here. So this vertical distance, this vertical distance has to be the unit tax. That is what they are saying. So the vertical distance between the two supply curves is your unit tax line. So then if I draw my supply curve like the blue one, that is wrong. If I draw my supply curve as the green one, that is also wrong. So the vertical distance between the two supply curves have to be equal to your unit tax. So that is what you have to be very careful with over there. So then according to this one, your supply curve will be here, because here only the vertical distance is equal to this specific tax. So then if this is your supply curve, then where is your equilibrium? This is your new equilibrium price, P2. How do you find the area of the tax? From your new equilibrium, draw a line to your old supply curve. This yellow area is your tax. The green area is the consumer surplus. The red area here is the producer surplus. So what are they asking you? If a specific tax is levied on the product, the producer surplus after the tax. So producer surplus after the tax will be the area D. How many of you all got that right? Yes. You got it? Answers. Good. Then going into the next, okay, 2018. They've told you the demand and supply equations have been given, and a change in the product tax on the good makes QS minus 36 plus P. How will the change in tax affect equilibrium price? So you find the equilibrium price before and after line. They have given you the supply curve before, equation before, and the demand equation. So how much is my initial equilibrium price? Tell me. How much is my initial equilibrium price? And that is minus 30 plus P equals 240 minus 2P. So if I simplify, how much do I get as P, Raman? I'm not going to do the question for you. 90. Okay, that's my initial equilibrium price. Okay. Now, Lamai, find the new equilibrium price. Now take a new supply equation. So the new supply equation, you equate it with your demand curve. So new supply equation is minus 36 plus P equals 240 minus 2P. Now, how much do you get as the equilibrium price? Now you get a 92. So then what is the question asking you? Question is asking you, how will the change in the tax affect equilibrium price? So what has happened, Lavan? Earlier equilibrium price was 90. Now it is a 92. It will rise by 2. So these are again, like I said, 3 marks in the paper. Easy, easy marks. Okay. Then the next one, 2019, the old syllabus paper. Okay, so I would have put this there as well. Okay. If the government imposes a tax on the production of air conditioners, which of the following will occur in the market for air conditioners? Easy, no man. Now, if there is a tax on the production of air conditioners, what will happen in the market? Demand or supply? Supply. Increase or decrease? Supply will decrease. Supply will decrease. Can I shift where? Left or right? Will shift to the left. So again, like I said, pre-mark. These are disappointing kind of questions. So supply curve will shift to the left. Now remember, Lamai, be very careful. Now in our syllabus, we always talk about taxes on products. No, taxes on products, supply shifts to the left. But be very careful, Lamai, in case if the question said the government has imposed a tax on the consumer. Yep. Tax on consumers, Lamai, we don't go into detail. But in case they tell you, remember, Lamai, if there is a tax on consumers, then supply won't shift to the left. If there's a tax on consumer, Lamai, demand will shift to the left. That is not there in our syllabus. We don't go into that level of detail. But still be careful. In MCQ, they can give. Just blindly hitan nepa, all the taxes means supply shift to the left. That's why they're saying supply tax on production gila. So that is on the product, right? Supply is to the left, correct. But if they say taxes on a consumer, Anna, be careful. Then demand will shift to the left. Okay. So here answer is 4. Then the next one. Assume that good X is sold in a competitive market. Which of the following is true if a unit tax is imposed on the production of good X? These kind of ones are the ones that I like. So these ones you have to look at all the answers and figure out. So first one, if demand is perfectly elastic, the price does not rise by the amount of the tax. What do you think? If demand is perfectly elastic, who will bear the burden? Consumer or the producer? Demand is perfectly elastic. So remember, if someone is perfectly elastic, anith ekkena tamai gets the burden. So then producer gets the entire burden. So producer gets the entire burden. Your equilibrium price is not even changing. So this question says, if demand is perfectly elastic, the price of the good does not rise by the amount of the tax. So that looks half correct also, Lamai. If demand is perfectly elastic, and let's say this is your supply curve. Right now your price is 10 here. So if there is a tax, supply will shift to the left. Now your equilibrium price will still be 10. This will be your tax. So producer might get, let's say, 5 if there is a tax of 5. So if demand is perfectly elastic, price does not rise by the amount of tax, price does not rise at all. So this answer is like half correct. Right? We'll see. If it said price does not rise at all, that have been the perfect answer. We'll see if there's any other better answer. Nathang, you can go with this. Second one says, if demand is perfectly inelastic, the price does not rise by the amount of the tax. What about that, Lamai? If demand is perfectly inelastic, there, Lamai, the price does rise by the full amount of the tax. So we had a previous question also, Matagada. Like one of the first questions we did. If there is a tax, what happens? The price does rise by the full amount of tax. So that is why the consumer bears the entire burden. So this one is wrong there. This one says price does not rise. No, it actually does rise by the full amount of the tax. So this one is wrong. We are finding for the correct one. Third one, the consumer's tax burden of the tax rises as the demand curve is more elastic. Is that correct, Lavan? If demand is elastic, consumer's burden will rise. No, no. If it's inelastic, his burden will rise. So then wrong. Consumer's burden of the tax rises as the demand curve is less elastic. Is that correct? Less elastic and inelastic. Looks right, no? The lesser elastic you are, the more inelastic you are, your burden will rise. That looks right. Okay. Look at the last one. Last one says consumer surplus rises as a result of a tax. Now, my consumer surplus comes down. So then you have 1 and 4. Which one is more correct? One is also somewhere there. One is saying if the demand curve is perfectly elastic, the price does not rise by the amount of the tax. So perfect elastic, price does not rise at all. That's why I said it's not fully correct. It's half correct there. So fourth one would be the most correct one. If 4 was not there, Lama, you could have gone with number 1 even as your answer. Done. Then the next one. Now, this one. See, similar to the previous question. No? The table below shows the demand and supply schedules for a consumer good before and after the imposition of a tax. Price QD, QS before and after. See, Lama, in this also, quantity demand is perfectly inelastic. Yeah. What was the tax per unit and the amount of the price change after tax? What is the tax per unit? you can follow my steps and lamai work backwards. So we'll do the same thing again. So how much have they deducted from quantity supplied before to go to quantity supplied after? 550, 450, 600, 500, 650, 550. How much have they done? They have deducted the 100. Okay, from all of these, they did 100 only and they have got this. So that means the difference between the quantity supplies would have been 100. So maybe 600 and 700. Or maybe 650 and 750. Then if I connect that back to the prices, then what do you think would have been the tax limit? There would have been a tax of 10 rupees. There would have been a tax of 10 rupees. So then you selected those two prices, got the difference in quantity supplied at those two prices, deducted the difference and got quantity supplied after. So you're working backwards in that method that I told you. So then what was the tax per unit? Tax per unit would have been 10. Okay. What do you think, Lamai, is the price change after tax? Price change can Lamai equilibrium price. So here, can you find the equilibrium price? Quantity demand, quantity supplied before. So where is it equal? It's equal at 650. So equilibrium price before is 75. Equilibrium price before rupees 75. Now how much is the equilibrium price? 650, 650. Now it is Lamai 85. So equilibrium price after tax is 85. But how much did the equilibrium price change by? It changed by 10. Now here see Lamai, how come the tax is also 10? The equilibrium price also changed by 10. What does that mean? That the entire burden is on whom, Lamai? Tax was also 10 rupees. Equilibrium price has changed also by 10 rupees. That means the entire burden is on entire burden is on the consumer. When does the entire burden come on the consumer, Lamai? When demand is perfectly inelastic. Go and see the demand numbers. Is it perfectly inelastic? No matter what the price is, the QD is always 650. No matter what the price is, the QD is always 650, perfectly inelastic, right? As a result, consumer bears the entire burden. So tax is also 10 rupees. Change in equilibrium. I told you, the change in the price, change in the equilibrium price is equal to the consumer tax burden. So there is a 10 rupee tax. Equilibrium price all changes by 10 kN. That means consumer is bearing the entire burden. Yeah. So which one is our answer then? Answer 2. Did you all get that right? Yes. Good. Done. Then okay, we have a few more questions. We have actually 3 more. And then I'll give you a break. When you choose 750 and 850 QS to find the difference tax. No. When you choose 750, 850 and why are you choosing 750, 850? You mean this one here, no? Here, I think there should be a small mistake somewhere down the line. It's not a linear curve then. That last point, yeah? Agreed. So that should be a mistake because in your syllabus now you had linear supply curves and linear demand curves. So here what happens, slope changes, right? So price is going by 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, and the QS goes by 50, 50, 15. But here all of a sudden you will see price is going by 10, 90 to 100. I'm not sure if I typed it wrong here. Check if your past paper book also has, maybe sometime when I'm typing, I would have typed it wrong. Okay. And then you have this. That should be a small printing mistake there. Okay. Then 2021. 21 Lamai, question 13. They say the diagram below displays the market for good X. This thing, there is a tax. Which areas of the diagram shows the revenue collected by the government and the deadweight loss? Why? So which area is the revenue collected by the government, Lamai? This is your initial equilibrium price, the one I'm marking in blue. Now when there is a tax, supply shifts to the left. So now the one in the red. So how do you find your tax area from your new equilibrium, draw a line to your old supply curve, connect to the price side. So this yellow color one is your government tax revenue, and this black triangle there is your deadweight loss. I'm lazy to read the letters. Can someone tell me the answer? Answer 4. Fine. So answer is number 4. Tax revenue is the yellow shaded area. The deadweight loss is the black shaded triangle there. These are again free marks. Then 2022 question 13. Given a downward sloping demand curve and an upward sloping supply curve, a unit tax on a commodity will do what? Will it raise consumer surplus? Will it raise producer surplus? No, consumer surplus, producer surplus, both will fall when there is a tax. Cause a shift of the supply curve to the right. No, supply curve will shift to the left. Will raise the price by more than the tax. Can't be. If there is a tax of 10 rupees, price can't go up by 15 rupees. No. So can't be that as well. Then last one says it will raise the price by less than the tax. That means the consumer is not bearing the entire burden. So if there is a tax of, let's say, 5 rupees, price is going up by, let's say, 4 rupees. That means 1 rupee would have been in the bias. That's why they say raise the price by less than this. That's why they're saying like upwards, downward sloping demand and upward sloping supply. They are not talking about a perfectly elastic or anything. The normal demand and supply. So that would be your answer there. Shape, no, again, not hard. Then 2024. Very disappointing when they give this question, Dani. In the diagram, D1 is the demand curve, S1 is the initial supply curve. Suppose the government puts a tax on sugar, which shifts the supply curve to S2. Now, which area in the diagram measures the resulting tax revenue, new produce surplus, deadweight loss? So, which one is your tax revenue? My tax revenue would be this, BCG. Which area is the producer surplus? That would be the area H. Which area is your deadweight loss? Deadweight loss would be E and F. So which one is the answer then? Answer number 4. This is very disappointing. 2024 latest paper that you have. So when you do all of this and learn and go and when මේ වගේ බබා diagram එකක් දීලා they give you a table like this to underline, I will be very disappointed when you do that. We are finishing the syllabus beforehand. We are doing a fast track program. We are doing so much of past papers, so much of this ones, and all of it and going, and you can't get this done, right? That is the sad part. 2022 to explain again. So that's a normal demand and supply. They are saying there is a downward sloping demand curve, upward sloping supply curve. If there is a tax, what will happen? So if you have a downward sloping demand, upward sloping supply. Now, if there is a tax, what will happen? So if there is a tax, the price will increase, but the price will increase by less than the tax. So tax would have been, let's say 5 rupees, but the price would have gone up by, let's say 10 to 12. Equilibrium price. It can't be the fourth one. Now, it can't raise the price by more than the tax. Now, if there is a tax of 5 rupees, equilibrium price won't go up by 6 rupees. It can either be equal, then that the consumer is bearing the entire burden. Now, if the government puts 1,000 rupee tax on me, saying government tells Arshad, for every student you're teaching, you have to pay 1,000 rupee tax. My fast track class fees, that is 5,000, will maximum be 6,000. I might put the entire 1,000 on it. 5,000, I will not make it 7,000. So the price won't rise by more than the tax. Price will maximum rise by the amount of the tax. Usually it will be less than the taxes where the price rises. Okay, right. Okay, that's the MCQs that you have. The rest is the essay questions. So we'll take a break and get to the essay questions. How did you all do though? There were 1, 2, 3, 4. Total number of questions, I think there were 17 questions. Yes. How much out of 17? At least around minimum around 12-ish. I feel is a okay mark. 17 questions in total. Decent enough mark, at least if you have got around 12. If you've got more of that right, perfect. But figure out where you went wrong, Lama. That's the whole point. Not just 15 out of 17, 10 out of 17 away. If you got something out of 17, why did you go wrong? Why did sir say this? Why did I write this? So figure that out. So next time it comes, Lamai, you will not get it wrong. Okay? Now, right. So we'll take a small break and then we'll get to the essay questions. Essay questions also, we don't have a lot, Lamai. We can tatagal get it done. But there are a few calculations which we will do. So right now it's 8:24. Do you want a 6? Yes, yeah, we are finishing the essay questions today. You can leave if you want. I will finish the essay questions even if one person is there. Uh, do you want a break for 5 minutes until 8:30 or do you want a break until 8:35? I will finish the essay questions and finish the class. 35? Okay. Okay, so we'll take a break until 8:35. So you have 10 minutes to walk around, get your water, do all what you have and come back. Then I will go through the essay questions of this tax related area. Take a break. Right, so we'll start Lama with paper 2. Paper 2, I think we can go a little faster as well because some questions are very easy. So starting with 2011 A-levels question 2, subsection 4. So the question is saying, in the diagram, DD represents demand, S and ST represents the supply before and after taxes. At the equilibrium before the tax is imposed, what area represents consumer surplus? What area represents producer surplus? So a very easy one, right? So before the taxes, can you quickly give me answers? Which area represents consumer surplus? Before is the GFED. This part is consumer surplus. Which area is producer surplus? That would be the A, B, and the C. So I'm not writing it, Lamai. That's a very easy one. You all can note it down. That's part A. So GFED and producer surplus ABC. Part B is saying, after the tax is imposed, what is the area of consumer surplus and what is the area of producer surplus? So after tax, Lamai, supply shifts to the left. You have your new equilibrium price. So G becomes consumer surplus after tax. Which area is producer surplus after tax? Producer surplus after tax is the area A. That becomes producer surplus. Then they're asking you now, part C, what area represents the deadweight loss of the tax? So deadweight loss of tax is, that is area D and C. D and C or D and E? D and C, yeah. Area D and C. That is part C. And then the last one, what is the area that represents the government revenue? So government revenue is then the FE and the P. So that is, they have asked producer surplus. Yeah, sorry, only consumer surplus, no? Yeah, then fine. So you write only consumer surplus. That is the government revenue. So this type of question, I don't think will show up in your paper for 8 marks like this. That would be a very easy paper then. But 2011 was the new syllabus. So usually the new syllabus paper is a bit easier. That's why that type of a question for 8 marks would have showed up. Don't be very happy that you will get a question like this. Okay, then moving to the next one, 2013 A-levels, question number 2. They've given certain information and they've told you, assuming that both demand and supply curves are linear, derive the equation for the demand and the supply curve. Okay, so I'll show you how to make the equation now. I will start with the demand equation. So you know QD is equal to A minus BP. So how do you make a demand equation now? First step is to make that B component. How do you make that? Change in QD over change in price. So if you look at it, Lamai, how much is the change in quantity demand? 84 is going to 68. How much is the change? 16. 84 going to 16. So that's a minus 16. 4 is going to 8. What is the change in price? Change in price is a plus 4. So change in QD minus 16. Change in price plus 4. So how much is my B component then? Minus 16 divided by plus 4. I get a minus 4. Okay. After I find the B component, then what is my next step of my demand equation? To find the A component. How do I find the A component? To find the A component, what do? I have to substitute. QD equals A minus BP. So maybe I'll select the first one, price for QD 84. So when the QD is 84, I'm trying to find the A. B I found as minus 4. Guys, you don't have to put in minus 4. It's just minus 4 multiplied by your price. How much is your price? Price is 4 at that point. Okay, so then if you simplify, how much do you get? 84 minus 4 into 4 is minus 16. So then 84 plus 16 is equal to A. A is equal to 100. Then what is my demand equation? My demand equation is a QD equals 100 minus 4P. And for that thing, you will get 2 marks for showing all the workings and getting the equation. Now you also have to find the supply equation. Same step. So how do you find the supply equation? Supply equation is in the format QS equals A plus BP. So again, first step is to find the B. How do you find the B? Change in quantity supplied over change in price. So change in quantity supplied, 12 is going to 44. How much is the change? Change is a 32. So that is 32. Change in price, 4 going to 8. That is a 4. So 32 divided by 4, how much is my B component? My B component is a plus 8. Done. Now I have to go and find my A component. How do I find the A component again? I will substitute. So QS is equal to A plus BP. So maybe I'll take the first point again. Price for QS 12. So when the QS is 12, how much is my A? My B is 8. My P is 4. So 12 equals A plus 8 into 4 is a 32. I have to take the 32 to this side. So 12 minus 32 is equal to A. How much is the A then? A is a minus 20. Okay. So then I have my B component. I have my A component. So then what is my QS equation? My QS equation is a minus 20 plus 8P. And you have both the equations. Is that okay, Lamar? Get the demand and the supply equation. 4 marks there. It's ideal. Nice. 3 marks to do. Okay. Then the next part of the question is saying compute the equilibrium price and quantity using the demand and supply equation. So using these equations that you got, Lamai, to get the demand and equilibrium price and quantity. So that I will not do the whole thing. Can you all give me the answers, Lamai? I'm hoping there is no one who doesn't know how to do this. We did this in unit 2 as well. So 100 minus 4P will equal to minus 20 plus 8P. When you simplify, how much do you get for price? Price 10. Okay. So then you take that equilibrium price of 10, go and put it either to the demand or supply equation, and then you will get the quantity. How much do you get as quantity? You get 60. So write the answer nicely. Yeah? Say equilibrium price equals rupees 10. Equilibrium quantity equals 60 units. So your final answer, write it nicely. Don't keep it at the work. Again, a free 4 marks to get. Then the next part of it is asking, assuming that the government has imposed a tax of 3, compute the price received by the producer after tax and the tax revenue of the government. Okay, so we'll see this. First thing that you have to get is, we'll get the new supply equation. So what is my new supply equation? QS equals A plus B within brackets, you get a P minus T. So my original was minus 20 plus 8P. So minus 20 plus 8, P minus a 3 here. So let me simplify and get the new supply equation first. So how much do I get then? Minus 20, 8 into P is 8P, 8 into minus 3 is minus 24. Then I get minus 44 plus 8P. And that is my new supply equation. Now what will I do? Now let me find the equilibrium price and quantity value. new equilibrium price. So I'll take my demand equation, equate it with the new supply equation. My demand equation was what? My demand equation was 100 minus 4p, no? Yeah, 100 minus 4p. I'll equate it with my new supply equation, minus 44 plus 8p. So 44 comes to this side. So then 100 plus the 44, the 4p goes to that side. So then 12p is equal to 144. P is equal to 144 divided by 12. How much do we get? You get a 12. So equilibrium price is 12. How much is the equilibrium quantity limit? So you substitute this price equals 12 either to this demand equation or to the new supply equation, one of the two. So if you substitute, let's say take to the demand equation, 100 minus 4 into 12. So how much do you get? You get a 52. Okay, so I'm just skipping a few steps, because these are very easy. Thanks. Now they're asking you, Lamai, the price received by the producer after the tax. What do you think? The equilibrium price is 12. Okay. So consumer is paying 12 rupees. There is a tax of 3 rupees. So how much do you think, Lamai, the producer will receive? That's what they're asking. They are not asking for new equilibrium price. They're asking you compute the price received by the producer. Producer would get a in there. So if you want, Lama, you can have a diagram. I'm not drawing a diagram because it's an easy one. Price received by the producer will be 9 rupees, 12 minus 3. Then the next one they're asking the tax revenue of the government. So how much is the government collecting, Lama? You can draw a diagram, Lama. You can draw a diagram. But since this question is very easy, diagram I would recommend if they have asked for consumer surplus, produce surplus and all. So here they have not asked for those, no? So you can easily get it. So how much is the tax revenue, Lama? Per unit, government is charging a tax of 3. How many units are sold in the market now? The new equilibrium, there are 52 units sold in the market. So 3 into 52, that is a 156. That is that. So there is a 6 mark there. There is 4 marks here and another 4 marks here. There is 14 marks in that calculation. How many of you got all 14 of them? Yes. Made the demand and supply equation, got the equilibrium price quantity, then got the tax. Done. I doubt if this type of easy ones will come in your paper. If you get nang iting mara lucky, but I feel in your paper lamai, now question number 3 is unit number 3. No? From that 20 mark question, I feel usually it's around 8 marks that you might get a calculation for. Maximum. 10 marks you will be lucky, or otherwise it might be a 6 mark or a 4 mark calculation. Maximum I feel is like a 8 mark of a calculation from the 20 mark paper. 20 mark question. Question 3 is 20 marks. From that 8 marks most likely could be a calculation or even 6 marks. That means the balance you have to be prepared for theory. I doubt if like a 14 mark question like this for a calculation will come, but if it comes, you think very easy. But very easy kiyanne lamai bad for Z scores. So even the normal student gets it, even the smarter student gets it. So then the smarter student, your Z score doesn't really change much. But if the question was very hard, the average fellow struggles, the smart fellow gets it, smart fellow's Z score goes up a lot. I know, a little bit cruel on my end, but yeah, that's 2013. Then now I move into 2014. 14, again, a very easy one. We'll quickly go through. They've given the demand and supply equations. They're asking for equilibrium, price, and quantity. Can you give me the answers, Laman? How much do we get? I hope you all know how to find equilibrium, price, and quantity. So equate the two. How much is equilibrium price? 5. How much is the equilibrium quantity? 125. Fine. Okay. So all of you are getting that answer. Good. Then the next one, they're asking you value of consumer surplus at equilibrium. So for this time, I always recommend to draw a diagram. Easy for you to picture this. So they've given, you found the equilibrium price as 5, you got the equilibrium quantity as 125. So you know consumer surplus is this yellow shaded area. So to find this consumer surplus, you have one missing piece of information, that is that maximum demand price. Sorry, that is the price when QD equals 0. So we'll find that lamai first. So maximum demand price, I'll just say DP. So QD is 150 minus 5P. QD equals 150 minus 5P. When your QD is 0, what is the price? So how much do you get? You should get 30 as this. Okay, now you can find my consumer surplus. So you have all the information. You have nicely pictured it. That is that yellow shaded triangle. So then consumer surplus is half into base into height is 30 minus 5. Can you all give me the answer now? When I simplify, how much do I get? 1562.5. Okay. So remember, Lamai, this is rupees, no? So don't stop at 5. Put 50. 50 cents. So it's 1562 rupees and 50 cents. Just because you give 5, not that they will cut marks, but be more correct. It's 50 cents. Okay. Then part 3, the value of PED and PES at equilibrium. So how do you find the PED and PES? So PED is lamai, your minus B. You can replace the change in QD, change in P with that minus B multiplied by price over QD. So equilibrium price, equilibrium quantity. How much is your minus B lamai? Demand equation minus B is minus 5. Supply over 10. Okay. So then minus 5. Equilibrium price is 5. Equilibrium quantity is 125. How much do I get? A minus 0.2. Okay. Minus 0.2. Then you have the PES at equilibrium. That is the plus B into price over QS. Your plus B was a 10 in your supply equation. P was 5. This is 125. How much do you get? 0.4. Shape lemma, is that okay? Now I'm going a little faster because these are very basic. Unit number 2. Basic stuff we have already done. Then the next one is asking, if the government imposes a tax of 1 rupee and 50 cents on this good, new equilibrium and quantity after the tax, government tax revenue, the influence of tax on consumer surplus, the value of the deadweight loss. So if I am to draw that diagram again, Lamai, draw the diagram again here. So here you have the supply curve, you have the demand curve. Based on that, your initial equilibrium price was 5, quantity was 125, maximum demand price was 30. Okay. Now we'll quickly find Lamai. So my supply equation was a what? Was 75 plus 10. So can you all tell me, Lamai, what is my new supply equation? So 75 plus 10 within brackets P minus T. How much do I get, Lamai, when I simplify? 75. 10 into P is 10P. 10 into minus 1.5 is a minus 15. So then I get a 60 plus 10P, no? That's what I get. You'll also get that. The supply curve, Lamai, is an inelastic supply curve because you have a plus component. Is that okay? New supply equation, 60 plus 10. They'll also get that. Okay. So then the new equilibrium price and quantity, you take the demand equation, equate it with your new supply equation. So demand equation is 150 minus 5P. So 150 minus 5P equals 60 plus 10P. If I move the numbers around, it becomes a 90. Here it becomes a 15P. P is equal to how much? 6. is equal to 6. So then how much is my quantity limit? If my price is equal to 6, substitute that to either the demand or supply equation. Maybe I'll substitute to QD. 150 minus 5 into 6. So 5 into 6 is 30. 150 minus 30 is 120. Okay. Right. So I found my new equilibrium price, new equilibrium quantity. Now those time I put that nicely write it. These are very easy ones in the I'm going fast. So supply shifts to the left. Then you have your new equilibrium price at 6. New equilibrium quantity 120. What is the price received by the producer, Lamai? If the new equilibrium price is 6 and the tax is 1 rupee and 50 cents, how much will the producer receive? Complete the diagram. Producer will receive here. Consumer is paying 6 rupees. There's a tax of 1 rupee 50 cents. So the consumer will receive, producer will receive 4 rupees and 50 cents. Okay. Then done. That's the first one. Then the second one in the question, they're asking for tax revenue of the government. So government is earning per unit, they are earning 1 rupee and 50 cents into how many units are sold now? 120 units are sold. So then how much is that? That is 1 rupee 50 cents into 120 units. That is 180 rupees. Okay. Now, part C is asking the influence of tax on consumer surplus. Influence of tax can are they asking for the new consumer surplus or what are they asking? What does that influence of tax mean? They're asking for the difference. What happened to this consumer? Did it increase? Did it decrease? By how much did it increase? By how much did it decrease? And that is what they're asking. So we'll find the new consumer surplus. New consumer surplus is this red shaded area. No? So how much is that? CS after is half into base is 120, height is 30 minus 6. So how much do we get? Half into 120 into 24. 1440. Right. So now that is not your answer. So consumer surplus before Lama, you have calculated in the previous question. How much is that? 1562.5. So consumer surplus before CS before was 1562.5. We found it in part 2. So then Lama, how much has the consumer surplus changed by? That is the influence, no? So earlier consumer surplus is 1562.5. Now it is only 1440. So consumer surplus has changed or it has decreased by how much? 122 rupees are 122 rupees and 50 cents. So properly give that I say consumer surplus before is this much. Now the consumer surplus is this. Now it has decreased by this amount here. Okay, that is part C. And then you have the last one. That is part D, the value of the dead weight loss. So dead weight loss is what? Dead weight loss is that triangle there. How much is that? This blue shaded triangle, half into base, you can say 120. Now, since you're not writing equations and you have a diagram as working, give those proper numbers. So base is 125 minus 120. The height is 6 minus 4.5. And after that, next step, you can simplify half into 5 into 1.5. How much do you get? 3.75, 37.5, different answers. Did I get the numbers right? Half into 1.5 into 5. 1.5 into 5. 3.75, no? So rupees. 3 rupees and 75 cents. That is your dead weight. So again, I think that question was Lamai. I think an entire 20-mark question itself was a tax question. Again, like I think very unlikely you will get a question like that, Lamai. So here, if you take this entire question, 2014 was one of the most useless papers out there. So it's one of the easiest papers there. I won't even recommend spending a lot of time. Taggala, do it once. It's a very easy one. So if you see, Lamai, 2 marks here, 3 marks here, that is 5, 4 marks here, 9, and then 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So all the 20 was this. Government revenue is 180. Okay. So all 20 was from a tax question. You won't get it this year. I highly, 100% I will say you will not get a question like that. For 20 marks, you will not get a question like that. Okay. Then moving on to 2015. Now, Lamai, some theory related questions have come. Now look at this. They say 2015 question 2. We don't have a lot of questions. I mean, only around 4 or 5 questions we can finish in the next 15 minutes. Who pays most of the burden on a tax on producers when supply is inelastic? Explain your answer with the appropriate diagram. So here lamai, now shortcut you all know no? Supply is inelastic and then supply will bear most of the burden. That you all know. So whoever who is inelastic, I told you, gets most of the burden. So then producer will have most of the burden. So we'll draw and see lamai. Now you can't, in the paper lamai, you can't write higher the inelasticity, higher the burden. So the producer will get higher the burden. Namely, and that's a shortcut. So we'll draw. So you have to draw now. So demand curve, you can draw a normal demand curve. Okay. A normal downward sloping demand. Supply, draw an inelastic supply curve. Better. Okay. Inelastic supply curve. And then you have your equilibrium price and quantity. Let's say price is 10, quantity is 100. You don't have to give numbers, Lama. You can say P1, Q1. You can give things like that. When there is a tax, supply shifts to the left. This is the new equilibrium price. So change in equilibrium price is the consumer's tax burden. From this, you draw a line to your old supply curve. You connect to the price axis. So then you can see Lamai, this yellow shaded area is the consumer tax burden and the red shaded area is the producer tax burden. So you can Lamai shade those areas, maybe put letters, and then you can draw the proper diagram and properly label it. Producer tax burden. So for drawing the proper diagram itself, they will give you around 2 marks. Drawing the diagram, labeling which area is consumer's tax burden, which area is producer's burden, right? Showing how the supply shifts, properly having the axes mark, price, quantity, demand curve, supply curve. So showing all of it, they will give you marks. You don't have to put numbers here. Instead, you can, maybe put something like Q1, P1, you can put things like that. And then after that, you can give a small explanation. So diagram negative, you get 2 marks. Explanation negative, you get the balance 2 marks. So here explanation, I'm saying in a situation where supply is inelastic, producer would bear a higher portion. It can be illustrated by the diagram below. That's where the diagram comes. And then given that supply is inelastic, the producer is not very sensitive to a price change. Therefore, he will bear a higher proportion of the tax. For homework, I'm giving you another question, Lamai. See, if they give you a situation like this, now they can twist this around in so many ways, right? The same question, Lamai, you can ask it in different ways. So on your end, you see how they can ask. Right? They can ask it in different ways. So I have just given a homework. In a situation where supply is elastic and demand is perfectly elastic, how would the subsidy benefit be divided? So they can ask this thing, Lamai, for taxes. They can ask it for subsidies. They can give you any type of elasticity. So demand, supply, any type, taxes, subsidies, anything. So you should be able to, again, you can't memorize those diagrams. You should be able to, Lamai, properly analyze and draw the diagrams. Okay, done. Then the next one. Again, a very disappointing question, Lamai. So the given diagram below shows this. There is an excise tax of 60. The only thing that you have to be very careful with is when shifting the supply curve. So if there's a tax of 60 lemma, you all know the vertical distance between the two supply curves is equal to the tax. So tax of 60 nang lemma, then your supply curve should go from here. Okay. Now, if your tax supply curve goes from here, that is wrong. It has to go from here. Why here? Because the gap between these two have to be equal to 60 because the tax is 60. So be very careful with where you draw the new supply curve. If you draw that wrong, then the whole thing is gone. Okay, so if that is the new supply curve, then what is the change in consumer surplus? What is the change in producer surplus? How much will the government collect and what is the deadweight loss? Okay, so can you all give me the numbers, Lama? How much is the consumer surplus before we go to the tax one? How much is the consumer surplus before? You all can calculate, Lama. I'm not calculating. How much? Half into 2000 into 60. 60,000. 60,000. How much is the producer surplus before? That is half into 16 to 2000. That is all 60,000. So producer surplus before is also a 60,000. Okay. Then now once there is this tax, supply shifts to the left, right? You have your new supply curve S plus T. Now this is your equilibrium price. So this green shaded triangle is your consumer surplus. Yellow shaded triangle is your producer surplus. The blue box is the government tax revenue. The red triangle is the deadweight loss. So now find the areas. How much is your new consumer surplus, Lame? Consumer surplus, new one. CS after. Guess I'm not doing the numbers. You can calculate this. No, you all have done this and come now. That's a 15,000. Okay. So then that's a 15,000. Then they're asking you, Lame, how much will consumer surplus change? So what is the change? It has increased or decreased? It has decreased. Decreased by how much? Decreased by 45,000. So be very specific, Lamai say consumer surplus has decreased by rupees 45,000. Then producer surplus, how much is the new one, Lamai? PS after. How much is that? That's all the 50. They're going the same numbers, no? Rupees 15,000. Then what is the change in producer surplus? Earlier 60, now 15. That also it has decreased by rupees 45,000. That's part A and part B. Then part C, how much will the government collect as tax revenue? So per unit, they're charging a tax of 60. How many units? That is the blue shaded box. 60 into 1000. That is a 60,000. Then the last one, calculate the deadweight loss. Deadweight loss is the red triangle. So that is half into base could be 2000 minus 1000. Height is 90 minus 30. 90 minus 30. So how much do we get when we simplify? 30,000 rupees. 30,000. Again, I feel a little too much of an easy type of a question, which I don't think will show up in your A-level paper. In the mock exam series and the fast track, we will do much harder questions. Prepare for things like that. Don't feel very good about getting a question like this right now because these questions actually are way too easy. Your actual question can be much harder. Okay, then going to the next one. Three more questions and then we are done. They've given a demand and a supply equation. Assume the government has imposed a tax of 6. What price do the buyers pay? What price do buyers pay for the good after the tax? How much revenue will the government collect? So what price do buyers pay is Lamai? They're asking for the new equilibrium price. That is what they're asking. So first, what you need to do, you have to first find the new supply equation. So what is your new supply equation then? QS equals minus 100 plus 4 within brackets P minus T, T is 6. Guys, can someone give me the answer? How much is the new supply equation? We have done this so many times now. What's the new supply equation? Minus 124 plus 4P. Okay. So minus 124 plus 4P. Then now you find the equilibrium price and quantity. Quantity also find them because for part B you will need it. So how much is the price paid by the buyer? That is the new equilibrium price. So QD is 200 minus 2P. QS new one is minus 124 plus 4P. If you simplify Lamai, how much do you get? Equilibrium price 54. Right. So prices are 54. Others also see if you get that. Then that is part A. Part B wants the government tax revenue. For that, Lama, you need to have the equilibrium quantity. How much is the equilibrium quantity? If you substitute 54 to either the demand or the new supply equation, 92. So then equilibrium quantity is 92. So then therefore government tax revenue will be how much, Lama? Per unit, they're charging 6 rupees. They're selling, there are 92 units sold. So 6 into 92, that is a 552. So again, an easy question. This is because Lamai, this is the new syllabus. 2019 was the new syllabus paper. So you can see a very easy 8-mark question. Right? Just a normal, simple tax calculation. No consumer surplus, producer surplus, nothing like that. Also just equilibrium price, the price paid by the buyer and the government revenue. So they're giving you 8 marks. Again, unlikely. Maybe this type of question can come, but not for 8 marks. Maybe the same thing can come, it will come for 4 marks then, 2 and 2, not for 8. Then 2023, interesting one. Under what circumstances would a unit tax on a good leave both the market price is the equilibrium price, and the quantity bought unaltered? Explain your answer using a diagram. Now, in which situation can this happen now? Think of elasticity. Even when there was a tax, the equilibrium price and the quantity both will not change. In which situation does this happen? Demand, supply, what? So where will both not change, Lama, if supply is what? If supply is perfectly inelastic. So if you have, Lama, a perfectly inelastic supply curve, and let's say this is your demand curve. Okay. So in a situation like this, Lamai, if there is a tax, remember, a perfectly inelastic demand curve doesn't shift, Lamai. Remember the logic I told you? Perfectly inelastic supply here, it's like the number of seats in a movie theater, number of seats in a stadium. That is perfectly inelastic. No matter what the airplane ticket is, number of seats in the airplane is the same. No matter what the price of a movie theater ticket is, number of seats in the movie theater is the same. So supply doesn't change. That's what you call perfectly inelastic supply. So even if there is a tax or subsidy, number of seats in the movie theater can't change. Imagine there is a movie theater that has 500 seats. Now if you go and put a tax on it, will the number of seats come down to 400? No. It will still be at 500, right? So then that's why in a perfectly inelastic supply situation, even if there is a tax or subsidy, supply doesn't shift. So if the supply doesn't shift, then your equilibrium price won't change, your equilibrium quantity won't change as well. So then that could be the situation. Demand, any demand should be fine. Demand, even if the demand is normal, it's still same. Demand doesn't have to be perfectly elastic. Demand can be anything. Even if the demand is a normal downward sloping demand curve, still your answer is correct. So the focus there is not on the demand, the focus is on the supply. So demand, I think even if you've given any thing, they would have given you marks, but you need to understand demand could be anything. Demand doesn't really matter there. So as long as your supply is perfectly inelastic, then lamai, the price and the quantity will both not change. Now they can change this question differently. Lamai. They can ask in your year, which of the following might change the price but not change the quantity? What can change the quantity but not change the price? So then you can work around with different elasticities and see. There are questions in my mock papers that I will give you all, but be prepared. So here, then you can explain, you can say, in a situation where supply is perfectly inelastic, the supply will not change as a result of a tax. So therefore, the price paid by the buyer, equilibrium price and the quantity would remain unchanged. And you give the diagram. So diagram itself will give you around 2 marks, Lamai. The explanation, small one, will give you the other 2 marks. Done. Then we have the latest question. Again, was not a very big fan of this. Distinguish between specific tax and ad valorem tax. So specific tax is what you call a unit tax, Lamai. So what is a unit tax? A unit tax is where you charge a fixed amount. You charge a fixed amount per unit. So for example, 5 rupees per kilo of sugar, 10 rupees per coconut, 100 rupees per kilo of rice. So that's called a specific tax, where you charge a fixed amount of tax per unit. What is a ad valorem tax, Lamai? Where you charge a percentage. You charge a percentage as tax on the price. So on the price or the value of the good, you charge a percentage of it. So if the price, let's use a 10% tax. So if the price of sugar is 1 kilo, then the tax would have been 10 rupees. If the price of sugar is 200 rupees, then tax would have been 20 rupees. So you charge a percentage. Here you charge a fixed amount. That's the difference between a specific unit tax and an ad valorem tax. So you don't have to have a big answer, Lama. It's just 2 marks. So one small sentence about what is a specific tax, one small sentence about what is an ad valorem tax is more than enough there. That is it with all your tax related questions. No, ad valorem doesn't mean progressive. Ad valorem means just a percentage. There is no rule saying that it has to be progressive. So that is that. Any questions? Fine, Chef. So taxes is done. So next class, most likely we will do subsidies and maximum prices both, because subsidies and maximum prices both, you don't have a lot of questions. So I'm repeating, I'll inform this in the group as well. So focus area number 9 and 10, both of it will do it next class. The subsidy itself, there is not much questions. So do and count. Focus area 9 and focus area 10. Both we will do next class. When is the next class? The next class is Lamai. Today is when is the model paper exam? Is on the 13th. Which model paper, Lamai? Sorry, you're referring to the mock exam series. Mock exam series, I will start. That's a paid class now. That I will start in August. Once this fast track first 4 months are done, that is where the mock exam series starts. So again, reminder on the fast track, I'm starting unit number 7, 8, and 9. I'm doing 7, 8, and 9 this month. Fast track month 3. New people can join. You will get the study plan as well. It's starting on Monday. I have sent the fee and the registration details on the group. There are a few slots left. If you're registering, I think in the next couple of days, you should be able to register and get things done. Once registrations are closed, I will inform in the group. After that, don't pay and register. Once the slots are filled, registrations will close. Right, so with that, we'll call it off. For those who have questions, please do stay and clarify. The others, I will see you all next class. See you. Bye-bye.